Today we're going to continue off where we left off last time with informational bots, personalized bots, and transactionals. So we're going to focus on informational bots today. And the first thing we need to understand is ChatGPT seems like a plausible way to do that, but ChatGPT does not know anything outside of the model it has already been trained on. So if an employee were to ask ChatGPT, what's the policy around bringing your dog to the office? It would answer some generic answer like the policy around bringing dogs to the office can vary from one company to another. And that's really the problem. It does not know the knowledge of this particular organization or her particular organization to answer correctly. So, in order to have a relevant answer, we need to train our model. And training robot consists of a set of steps: creating your dataset, pre processing, receiving a query, and submitting questions to GPT. So, let's dive into what each one of these means. Creating your dataset is really about indexing the documents and articles that should be used for answering. So this can be things like your employee handbook, policies, and so on. The whole concept is we take all that data and save it somewhere as our data set. So this can be in a database, it can be in a search index, wherever you want to save it to be accessed later. The next step is pre-processing, which is we take that information and start splitting it into chunks and create embedding vector for each chunk. So the first thing we need to focus on is when chunking items, we need to chunk them into relevant pieces. So for example, your employee handbook might talk about a lot of things. You need to chunk it into paragraphs or based on headings so that each chunk would be talking about a specific topic rather than a generic one size fits all kind of vector. And the way we do embedding is we'd use the embedding API from OpenAI to create a vector for each one. And then we'd save each chunk with its vector in a vector database. And this will be easier to search through when we're trying to respond and when the bot is trying to respond. Now, once someone asks a question to the bot, on receiving a query, they embed the query in the same vector space. So we would use the same embeddings API to get a vector for the query that we just received. And then through the database, through the vector database, search for the most similar to this query. Once we have that, we submit question to GPT. We submit that question along with the most relevant context to GPT, and then GPT would be able to receive an answer which makes use of that provided contextual information. Because you can't give GPT or OpenAI in general your whole articles, all your articles. That would just not work because it only takes fine-tuned models or the prompt, and both of them this would be much bigger than the token size we're allowed to use. So having only the chunk through that search, through that vector search, will get the most relevant answer or the most relevant content through search, and then answer from that through GPT prompts. So with this, what we've covered is embeddings API, vector database, and completion API. And this is there's an example that OpenAI has for that. So if you go to github.com, OpenAI cookbook, there's one called question answering using embeddings, and that covers this scenario. So you can take it from there as well.